Hello everybody, today we are traveling all the way back to 1939 and I'm reviewing the classic film Wizard of Oz for no other reason than I feel like it. I'm pretty sure that everybody who has a pulse has seen Wizard of Oz at some point in their lives, but you know, if you haven't, if you're one of those people who hasn't, here's a quick synopsis. It is the classic tale of Dorothy Gale from Kansas, played by the magnificent Judy Garland, and she lives in this very kind of small hometown and she dreams of escaping to somewhere a lot greater. She's just kind of unhappy and she's not content with her life. So she kind of wants to travel somewhere over the rainbow. And in this film, she does get her wish. A tornado blows through Kansas and tears her home from the ground and whisks her off to the magical land of Oz, where she meets all kinds of different creatures, different people, all kinds of exotic places. But the entire time, she is trying to find someone who can help her to try to get back to Kansas and back to her family. I'll be honest, when I was probably in my late teens, I went through a period where I was extremely pretentious and totally rebelling against, you know, all the kids' films and particularly Wizard of Oz. And I think I just took issue with what I considered the moral of the film. I think initially I took the film at face value and I would say things like, oh, well, this film is saying that you must settle for mediocrity, that, you know, you shouldn't go for your dreams, that you should stick to what you know and stay in Kansas, which, you know, on one hand I can see how that can be a reading of the film, but to me that's a very simplistic interpretation of it. As I've gotten older, I've started to see the film very differently, and I think it wasn't until, yeah, definitely in college that I started to realize that even though this movie is a very kind of accessible story and it has a very traditional narrative structure in the style of a classic Hollywood film at MGM, but it's also a very psychedelic movie that has so much imagination and creativity that you just don't see often anymore. I think that it was incredibly risky to make a film like this, especially in the 30s in Hollywood. You know, not only in terms of just kind of the grotesque imagery and the vividness of everything in terms of just the visuals, but in terms of also how you could perceive the film. I see this film as a dream, a very dreamlike exploration of the subconscious, Dorothy's subconscious in particular. I remember having a conversation with some friends when I was in college, and we discussed how, you know, like Oz could be considered, you know, like a metaphor for the psychosis, but it could also be a metaphor for tripping on a drug, a psychedelic drug. You could see Kansas as real life, and then Oz is like Dorothy tripping on acid, or, you know, something like that. And when you consider that theory, even though some may consider it far-fetched, I think that it really changes the way that I look at it. It isn't just about the protagonist confronting opposing forces and achieving a goal like so many typical films. I mean, yes, it is that, but when you kind of peel back the layers, you realize that it is about self-exploration, personal discovery, and revelations that you discover about your real life. Dorothy represents all of us in that, you know, so many people don't know how to be content with their reality. She sees her life as literally very black and white, very ho-hum, and she's in love with this fantasy, this kind of romantic, unattainable thing that does not exist. If you look at Oz as a metaphor for like acid, peyote, DMT, whatever, her world becomes enhanced by the psychedelia. And the people in her life, like, you know, the people that, you know, her family and you know, the farmers and all of that, become these fantasy-like archetypes during the trip. For instance, like the Wicked Witch, the Tin Man, the Lion, Scarecrow, all those characters, and the Wizard are all kind of surreal versions of the truth. So when you have these kind of amazing visions and euphorias that are so unlike anything you've ever experienced, the grotesque, but the beautiful and the mysterious, all at once, it allows you to kind of take that and apply it to your real life, and you start to see the beauty and in your reality, or, you know, Kansas representing reality. Dorothy has all these dreams of escapism and all that, you know, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but it shouldn't be everything. She needs to learn not to replace what she already has with something that doesn't exist. and she learns to kind of accept what she has and to learn to love, which to me is a very valuable and important lesson that I wish I had understood earlier. The wizard to me is probably the most fascinating thing about the entire movie. He stands for, you know, like as a symbol, as this mythic figure that people can look up to, because we all like things to be categorized and symbolized in a way that makes things easier for us. But in reality, it's all just smoke and mirrors. He's really not the great and powerful wizard that they think he is. And, you know, he's just a guy behind a curtain, an illusion. The wizard could be kind of considered almost a representation of the ego, and that the ego is always trying to trip us out. We're always trying to be people that we aren't, and we're always looking for things that we can't have. In the film, the wizard reveals to Dorothy that she has all that power to be happy and everything already inside her, and she just didn't know it. Everything is kind of a figment of the imagination and part of the mind, and when you think about life in those terms, you'd be surprised at the things that you can do. So even though this movie is a big Hollywood movie and it's, you know, such a grand scale, so visually arresting, at the heart of the story, it's very personal. As a film, it does carry that tremendous heart in the characters and in the relationships between the, you know, the main cast, the friends. And I think Judy Garland is, you know, she carries this film. She is wonderful. I'm a huge fan of Judy Garland. I love the fact that she is able to be so vulnerable as an actress and just as a performer on screen, and I think that's why she holds up so much better than, like, you know, Shirley Temple or Margaret O'Brien. She's not trying to be cute. It feels very real when she has an emotion. When she is elated, you're elated with her. When she's sad, you are trying to keep back the tears. When she's afraid, you're afraid. It's just, you know, she's not faking it. Not only just her innocence and her fragility when she's on screen is so apparent, but also just her maturity as an actress, and her maturity in terms of her singing voice is amazing. I think Somewhere Over the Rainbow is just one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in a musical. She was only 16, 15 or something like that when she sang that song, and she has such richness and meaning in that voice is just amazing. And I think the same could be said for all of her films. You know, I don't really cry very much in movies, but when I watch Judy Garland, I am always fighting back the tears when she sings something. Her caring for all of these other characters, such as the Tin Man and the Lion and the Scarecrow, I think it helps so that when the curtain is lifted, no pun intended, it kind of helps us to focus on what is important in terms of the morals. So even though this is a kid's film, you can return to it, I think, at any point of your life and find something to admire in it. And even though I feel like I really didn't appreciate it until I was much older, I think that's a sign of a good film. The fact that you can show it to your kids and they can be amazed, and you can feel the same way when you're, you know, 24, 84, whatever. That is the sign of a timeless classic. So if you've never seen this movie before, check it out this Christmas sometime. Or, you know, maybe if you have seen it, watch it again. It's worth a second viewing. So anyway, that is my review. Thank you all for listening. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below, and you can also like my Facebook page below that link. And catch you next time.